What's going on, everybody? My name is Hassiem Muhammad, and you are listening to The Actor's Instrument. On season 1 of this show, I had on a few casting directors to shed a light into the casting process and, to help actors understand what casting is actually looking for. We'll for sure touch on that today, but today's guest, Alaine Aldaffer, brings a different perspective to the table because she is the in-house casting director at Playwrights Horizons in New York City, a theater that centers the voices of new contemporary playwrights, which means when Alaine and her team begin working on a project, they are often the very first to ever cast the show. Alaine has cast theater and television for over 25 years. She has received 13 Artios Award nominations and 3 wins for excellence in casting, including this year's win for the casting of Downstate. In her time at Playwrights Horizons, Alaine has cast over 100 productions throughout her tenure, including original casting for the Pulitzer Prize-winning play A Strange Loop, Grey Gardens and its Broadway transfer Clybourne Park and its Broadway transfer The Flick by Annie Baker, and literally over 100 other shows. Alaine, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And I'll add in there Stereophonic, which is moving to Broadway. So,
yay! Another one.
Another one. Yeah, another one. I'm really proud of that one.
It's incredible. It's incredible. You're just rattling them off. I mean, boom, one hit after another.
Yeah.
Is that ever, are there times where you may cast the original and then there's different casting when it transfers, or often is it the same? Or is it just depends?
Yeah. I mean, it's happened a couple of times, but I've been pretty lucky because usually the casting director who takes over usually makes sure that I am either involved or at least get credit for the project. So, and of course I would do the same for them if they were, if it were flipped.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's, it's hard. That's hard when, all your hard work, kind of stall and somebody else takes it over.
Yeah.
And then you see your cast, being credited to somebody else. But that's really rare, because again, casting directors are very, very sensitive and it's a generous community. So everybody makes sure that everybody is credited properly. But it was like, it's funny you say that because there was a show that I worked on that went to Broadway, and I got a phone call from the producer who said, "Hey, we're not going to go forward with you." And I was, I was disappointed, but I was like, okay, cool. You know what? The show will have fresh eyes. Somebody else maybe will be able to kind of figure things out that maybe I wasn't able to. Maybe, maybe it'll enhance the cast. And then I was fine with it. And I said, wow, it's so classy of you to call me and say that to me. And I'm good. And, you have my blessing. And then this producer said to me, "We just want somebody with more experience."
What?
Yeah. And I was like, what?
Have you seen my resume?
Yeah. I was like, and I was kind of floored. And of course, I was I was like, what? And then, I'm like, okay, bye. And then I all I kept thinking was like, should I call her back? Should I send her my resume? What? Okay. Like,
and also how insulting.
And then they hired somebody with like much experience compared to me. But you know what? Honestly, here's the thing. This happens to actors. It happens to actors where actors will, give 150% of themselves to a project and then and not go forward with it.
Yeah.
And so I just assumed that, that's part, I mean, it's one of the parts of the business that suck. But I'm in good company.
Yeah. No, I mean, I absolutely love your team. I mean, anytime Michael, my agent, calls me, he's like, "Hey, we got an appointment for Alaine." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going in. I don't care what the show is." I'm like, "Yep, you can confirm. You can go ahead and confirm." No, always love always love being for you guys.
Yeah.
You run an excellent room. Well, we're not always in
Well,
the
thank you
room
for
now,
that. But
but
I have to say we do it very selfishly, because if you feel comfortable and welcome and respected, then you're going to come in and you're going to do your best work, and you're going to make
yeah,
me look good. So,
yeah,
yes. So there
yeah.
you go.
No, you guys are doing it. I mean, I always feel so comfortable. I mean, there's some times where some casting directors, you can tell they called you in because of maybe your type or your look. And I don't feel like I feel like anytime you call me in, I'm like, no, I am right for this project, and it's good to know that we can trust that on the other side of the table. Because I think there's so much focus on what we do as actors when we get in the room, and part of the reason why I'm having casting on this podcast is for actors to recognize that it's a relationship, and it goes both ways, you know.
Yes.
So where I would like to start is the beginning. I would just love to know how you got into casting. I feel like there aren't too many
Oh,
people when
okay.
they're kids. They're like, yeah, I want to be a casting director when I grow up.
Do you know what? I did when I was a kid, but I didn't really understand
Oh,
what I was doing was casting. But I loved being in plays. I was in plays. I mean, my first play I was 5 years old, and I'll never forget, the performance was on my 5th birthday, and the play was called Going to the Zoo. And I still to this day know all my lines, and I know all the songs from that. It was just like the best day of my life. I mean, when actors talk about getting bitten by the bug, that's when I got bit by the bug. And then after that, I just, like, any kind of play I could audition for, any kind of drama club I could be in, or like anything, I would be part of it, because I just wanted to be part of that world. And uh, it was just, you know, it was my jam. Put
yeah.
a fire in my furnace. So at a very, very early age. But the other thing I used to love to do was, and I'm totally dating myself, but the TV guide used to come every week in the mail. And in the very last page would be a photograph of like a frameable photograph of a star. And I
Hmm.
would just, like, wait for the mail to come in. I would take it. I would tear off that last page, that picture, and I
Yeah.
put it in my drawer, in my sock drawer. And so I had like a stack of pictures like that. And I would sit in front of the television when I would watch movies, and I would recast the movie. So it was like, oh,
Wow.
yeah. And it was just a game to me at the time.
Hmm.
But I just loved it. I just thought it was so much fun. So kind of that's how it started. And then, and then I was in theater. I was in music. I was in children's theater in my hometown of Jackson, Michigan. I was in community theater. I was in theater in high school. I went to NYU. I was a theater major at NYU. I went to Michigan School of the Arts, conservatory program, theater major. And then I got to New York, went to NYU, and then decided that I was like, ooh, the acting thing wasn't really doing it for me anymore. But I knew I wanted to be part of the product. So it's like stage managing, I did that. Oh my God, it was terrible. I was so bad at it. Oh my God. No. And then it was like directing, maybe. But I kind of fell into it accidentally. There was a gentleman who was a commercial casting director, and he asked me to help him cast a commercial for suntan lotion. And I just remember the studio that we were doing the auditions in, the heat went out, and it was the middle of winter, and it was probably like 40 degrees in the studio, and all these poor women were coming in wearing bikinis.
Oof.
Yeah, for this Copper Tone commercial. And I felt so bad for all of them, but I mama bared all of them. It was like,
Hmm.
made sure that there were coats and blankets and things that they could wear before they went into to be put on camera. But I was like, I love this. I like this. And then, I met James Cleary, and when he came to
My
Playwrights
man.
Horizons, he brought me with them, and I was his assistant, and then I was his associate, and then he left to go on and do bigger, better things. He works at Columbia now and has a very successful casting business, and I stayed, and I became the casting director here at Playwrights Horizons. Been here ever since. So anyway, I'm sorry, that's a very long-winded So, the answer to your question or explanation of how I ended up where I am.
But it's an incredible story though. Like this whole time I'm listening to you and I'm like, I've never heard of this. Like I've never heard of the story of like, yeah, I was a kid casting. I was like
Yeah.
recasting characters on TV. That's not wow, that's
Uh-huh.
so unique. And also to be doing
Yeah.
at a time where because nowadays like on social media people will post like, "Oh, this is how I'd recast this." Like but you were
Yeah.
physically like
Doing
printed up
it. Yeah.
yeah, physically
At
doing it.
8, at the age of 8. Yes.
Which is incredible, and which is why I think
Yeah.
it's valuable for my listeners to hear from different folks, even though you have technically the same job title. It's like every
Mhm.
person's different, every person's journey and story has been different. So no, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to jump right into the meat and potatoes. So again, what I think makes your job so unique as a casting director at Playwrights Horizons, and also acknowledging that you do cast for other theaters and you cast
Mhm.
outside of Playwrights. But if we can focus on Playwrights for a minute, it's that
Yeah.
you do so much original casting, new
Mhm.
plays, which I'm making an inference here, and I'm going to guess that it is potentially a different kind of process from casting shows that have maybe been produced before. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on that is, the difference between doing something for the first time versus, oh, this has been produced at
Yeah.
7 other theaters before.
Yeah, it is an interesting process, and to be part of something that from the ground floor up is always very exciting. And but each project is different. So for instance, some plays are commissioned. So it's written specifically for our theater. And so, we will do readings, workshops, but to go back, in that situation, what we would do is I'll read the play, and I'm on the artistic staff here at Playwrights Horizons, so we would meet weekly, and we'll talk about the script, talk about what was working, what's not working for us, and then talk about doing a reading of it. And sometimes people say, "Oh, who would be really great for the lead? This person." So it's very much a collaborative effort
Hmm.
with the creative staff here. And then we'll schedule a reading or we'll schedule a meeting with the creative team. And, I like to say, in a perfect world, who would this be? And they don't even have to be an actor. Who would it be?
Ooh,
Uh, and it's interesting how much Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama come in that situation. But it gives you I just like to get a real feel for what they're thinking, what their dream is. And you have to understand with writers, especially new writers,
mhm,
who, we try to give them, a step up or to foster.
yeah,
New writers tend to have maybe these plays they've been writing them in their head for years. And so these characters sort of walk and talk in a particular way and they see them in a certain way. So sometimes it's hard to kind of get them to think outside of that, that small little box that they have put this character in, if that makes sense.
sure,
So
yeah,
I like to try to open them up and say, hey, and I like to throw in wild cards. I like to throw in somebody who just immediately goes against everything that they have described, like the total opposite, and just kind of see what they do. And sometimes that can just open up other possibilities. So it's a really fun creative process because again, you're doing something that nobody else has done before. You're telling a story with actors and characters that nobody's ever seen before. So nobody
right.
has any kind of preconceived ideas of who these people are going to be. And that's really cool. That's really exciting. Um, I remember when we did Stage Kids, Sarah Rule's play, she described one of the characters being like a tall, handsome, beefy gym rat, that but with not a lot of all brawn and no brain, basically. Not a lot of, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
not a lot going on. Uh and so we brought in all these guys who could play that, and it was just it just felt felt weirdly on the nose, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so I brought in character actors and actors like comics and different body types, and at the time Jessica Hecht was the lead. She said, "Hey, do you guys know do you know Michael Cyril Creighton, who was our box office, one of the people who worked in our box office at Playwrights Horizons. So we're like, yeah, and we'd seen him at a few things. He had a web series that was pretty popular. So we brought him in, and it was like, oh my God, there it is. It was genius because it's completely opposite, and therefore it gave it gave the story just like so much more. It made it so much more mercurial, if that makes sense too.
Sure. Yeah.
And then Michael's has a career now, and he's part of our family, but. That's my favorite example, probably, of where we went in thinking it was going to be something, and it turned out to be something completely different.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Hassiem here. I hope you're enjoying this week's episode. And if you haven't heard already, The Actor's Instrument is now a presentation of Red Letter Entertainment. We're excited to continue to bring you the best industry insights and introduce you to new artists who are making it work. And with this partnership with Red Letter, we're excited to bring you even more content, live episodes, and Q&As. New episodes of The Actor's Instrument will drop every Tuesday. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out at theactorsinstrument.com and follow Actors Instrument Podcast on all social media platforms so you never miss a beat.
Now, when it comes to you just made me think about the breakdowns that are released for audition appointments, for submissions. Actors, I feel like a lot of times we're on the fence. Like, is this really important, or do I ignore it?
Yeah.
When it comes to a new play, how important do you feel the breakdown is? Because I'm guessing you have, like you said, you have that meeting with the creative team, and then the breakdown is created and then it's released. How important is that for us to really pay attention to that?
That's a really tough question because, when the breakdown goes out, that is kind of just our blueprint for what we think it's going to be. And it's not necessarily what it's going to be. And I always say to actors, when they say to me, what are you looking for? I said, you know what? We don't really know. This is sort of like our initial sort of idea of what we think the casting matrix is. But that can change. But at the same time, I feel like if it's very, very clear, like the race or the gender or the those kinds of specifics.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not helpful when somebody submits and they are not when they don't check those boxes, because then it confuses me as to how that person identifies.
Sure. No, it does make sense.
So, So, but at the same time, I'm like a sucker for wildcard ideas and ideas that go completely against what I'm looking for. Because maybe, and also you have to understand, and I think that's another thing that I'm always telling actors is that I'm casting like 10 things at a time. So you may be like coming in for something that, like for instance, I'll be doing an EPA coming up very, very shortly. And you may look at that and say, well, I don't fit any of these categories, but maybe.
Yeah.
Because I'm always casting other projects, and I might see you for this thing and then bring you for this thing. I mean, the actor who was my runner-up for Stereophonic for the cover for Diana, I was sitting there going, oh, because I'm casting all my sons for Hartford. And I said, oh, and she's doing it. She's doing All My Sons in Hartford.
Amazing.
Because I saw her in that day when I was casting that part. I was like, oh, she's perfect. And she is. And she's going to be great in the part.
It's amazing. And All My Sons is one of my favorite plays.
Oh, me too. Yeah. It's my favorite Art Development play.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good story.
Yeah, I think it's
heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking, and it's just like from top to bottom, it's just flawless.
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Nice. So when actors, so the breakdown comes out, we get the audition, we come in, we're aware that it's a new play, because sometimes, it's like preparation is key. So we're doing our research, but when it's a new play, you don't have a ton to go off of.
No.
What would you recommend, on the approach?
Oh, I love this question, because here's the thing. You have to adopt a point of view. You just have to. Because again, like I said, sometimes we don't know what we're looking for. So you have to look at the audition as an opportunity to honor your own expertise, your own point of view. So you come in as a collaborator, you come in as a consultant. You are like, I'm an expert on this play and these roles. Here's what makes the most sense. And I am going to give you what I'm going to almost like a presentation of what I think it should be. And if you adopt that sort of attitude when you go into a room, that you have the courage of your convictions and how you think the story should be told, if you do that, you're going to have confidence in your choices. You're not going to, because I think sometimes actors, the worst thing they do is they play it safe. And sometimes they will just flatline it because they're so afraid that they're going to make a wrong choice. And I was, this is something I always say, a creative team will forgive you for getting it wrong. They will not forgive you for boring them.
Okay.
So you just have to kind of come in and just like, first of all, relish the opportunity to be an actor and relish the opportunity to provide your own point of view for that play or that character, and also and to understand that you are a collaborator in that experience. And I tell actors all the time, when you come in, we learn something from what you did. And then even if you don't get the job, you can come and see that see that production and sit there and know that you contributed to it. You'll see a spark of what you did in your audition in that production, and you can be proud of that because it's such a blessing and an honor to be part of this community.
Yeah.
And I think that if you adopt through that way of processing everything, I think the disappointments will be less.
Sure.
But disappointment is we all experience it. Like I was talking before about not getting that job, not getting that casting job because somebody thought I didn't have enough experience. It's not always fair and just. But I do believe that if you have a positive attitude throughout the process, I do believe the universe picks up on that. And I think you allow the universe to balance the scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're bitter and angry, then you interfere with it. With that. I think it's really important to just stay positive, lean into those disappointments, because they will teach you resilience. They will teach you stamina. But you also have to lean into the blessings of being part of something that's amazing community of storytelling that is that the possibilities of making change in the world that are needed at that time to kind of tell stories that kind of get people to think in a different way. And I think, that's how I approach the work. And I always encourage actors to approach the work in the same way.
No, thank you. Absolutely. There are two things that you just brought up that I'd love to just uplift even more, which is one, coming in, making a choice, daring to be bold. I feel like it's easy to get stuck in the trap of trying to do the audition right and trying to book the job and feeling like you will only book it if you do it right. Versus coming into the room and doing your version of it, as you said.
Yeah.
And I love that because I feel like there's actually more freedom in doing your version, which will likely translate to a better performance to begin with.
Right.
And then the other thing you said about, come back and watch a show. So there was a show I auditioned for with you guys, and I went and saw the show. I loved it. I had a great time.
I know what the show is.
Yeah, you know what the show is. Yeah, it was awesome. And me and my wife went. It was awesome. And I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel because I felt like I was close on that one, and I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel.
Yeah,
And
you were my first choice for that role.
shucks.
You know what? But unfortunately, I don't always prevail.
But it's okay. But honestly,
But
like it wasn't like awkward or anything to be and I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel, but I saw the show and it actually gave me the opposite feeling that I thought I was gonna have. I saw the show and I went, "Oh yeah, I could have done this."
yeah,
You know, like it didn't feel like it was like a skill thing. I was like, "Oh, they for whatever reason this other person was chosen," but I didn't feel rejected, if that makes sense. You know, because I was like, "Oh,
yeah.
you know what
You
I'm saying?"
can't. You
Yeah,
can't. You can't allow yourself to go there.
yeah,
That I suck or I messed up or even like it's unfair. I should have gotten that part. You just can't go there because I do believe everything happens for a reason. And and sometimes, and I always say this, the best audition rarely gets the part. There are so many other factors involved in creating that matrix. And sometimes it's as simple as they'll go with the actor they know because maybe I've worked with this person before and I really like working with this person. I know what they're going to do. And since our rehearsal time is so limited, I want somebody who's going to hit the ground running rather than having somebody who I don't know who I'm going to have to get to know. So there's so many things. It's really funny because I ran into an actor in the bathroom of an audition
mhm,
and she had just come in for something else and gotten really close. And, and I was talking to her and I said that to her. I says, the best audition rarely gets it, but I think your work is good and I love it. And you're on my list of people I really want to cast. And it was like the very next thing I cast her in.
mm.
It was actually that audition that I talked to her in the bathroom about. Yeah.
That's
It was like,
amazing.
yeah. And then I went and I sat down. She came in right afterwards. She was amazing. She got the part. And I was like, well, there you go. I brought her in 5 times and she finally got it. And it made me so happy.
That's incredible. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And it's that point you just made about, the best actor, the best audition doesn't necessarily get it. You don't always have final say.
Well,
Specifically when it comes to bringing it back to the new works, how much influence does the playwright have in the
the playwright
process?
is everything. The playwright is everything because we are writers' theater. However, in the decision making, the way it's done at Playwrights Horizons is a little bit unusual and unique. Is that everybody gets a 1/3 vote. So that means the theater, the producer, which would be Adam Greenfield, and the director, whoever the director is, and the writer, whoever the writer is, everybody gets a 1/3 vote. Now, here's
Oh,
the interesting part. It has to be unanimous.
that is interesting.
So they all have to agree. Now that can be sometimes sometimes they all agree. Many times they all agree, and that's great. And then there are times when everybody wants something different, and that has happened. And so what ends up happening in that case is we keep looking,
Mm.
or we will go with the 4th choice because that's the person that everybody can agree on. Yeah, so
No, that's
very interesting.
that is really good to know because sometimes we go in and we're like, man, I thought I killed that,
And
or
you know what? And if you think that, you did. I'm telling you, you did.
Mhm, mhm, and sometimes it's like, man, I could tell like the director was feeling me, or
Mhm.
casting was feeling me, or what, and so I love that you just peeled back the curtain for me. It's like, listen, that could all be true, and the job could still go to another person, and yeah, it
Yep,
has nothing to do with you.
has
Um,
absolutely nothing to do with you. And and you're just like you're just coming in planting seeds and making fans. And maybe you don't get this one, you'll get the next one.
yeah,
So you just have to just keep moving forward. I always say after your audition, make them chase you to the elevator to bring you back in and see you
mm,
again. I can't tell you how many times I've had assistants chase people down 42nd Street to bring them back in. Um, so you just on to the next thing. And I know it's hard to let go of outcome. It's really hard to, but that's just something you have to cultivate those muscles and that skill. Because otherwise you're going to drive yourself crazy. And the other thing I always say too is um, measure success by your commitment to your art and not by your bank account.
yeah.
Um, if you keep your head down and you do good work and you are committed to your craft, it's going to work out for you. Maybe not right away, but eventually it will. And if you give your art an ultimatum that unless you make money for me, I'm going to punish you, then your relationship with your art is going to be dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Then you just can't go there.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. We're coming up on time, so I've got one
Okay.
final question.
All right.
This is like the thematic question. So typically when I have actors on, I ask them about the defining quality that they possess that they feel like makes them stand out, right? It's the actor's instrument. When it comes to bringing people in, what do you feel like is that quality that is consistent amongst those actors on your short list? Those people that you want to bring in, that you want to see succeed, what do they have in common?
Okay. Well, I would say that I have a very good bullshit meter. So when somebody is truthful or not. And then I would say the other thing is actors who are present and truthful and can just live through the story or the scene or whatever else they're doing. I think that's what I have in common with the actors who come in for me. Also, I have really good taste in actors, and I feel like actors that I like and cast also have very good taste in actors, and will sometimes recommend people to me that maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's the
No,
a
you
good
made it
answer.
loud and clear, folks. No bullshit. Loud and clear. Well, amazing. Alaine, thank you so much for shedding a light into the process.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. This is so fun. That was so fun.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to The Actor's Instrument. I'm Hassiem Mohammed, and you can follow me at Hassiem Mohammed and the show at Actor's Instrument Podcast on all social media platforms. The Actor's Instrument is a presentation of Red Letter Entertainment. Executive producers, Adam Jellicourse, Serena Esposito, and yours truly. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check us out at theactorsinstrument.com. We'll be back next Tuesday. Till next time, y'all. Peace.